Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you everybody for joining us. If you wouldn't mind, I have the Nearpod up here. Let me just grab the link for you and I'll put that in the chat. If you can on another tab, follow along. That just kind of helps you keep your engagement and running through there. So let's start off. This is our week 6, and there's 6 units in the course. So this is actually our last unit for the block, as I was telling people before I did start the recording. Just so you know, this is being recorded for learning purposes. Just giving you that little warning. And then classroom expectations, we go through things. Make sure you're following along with the Nearpod lesson. That just helps us go faster, get moving through things. Make sure you're using the chat tools respectfully and appropriately, and then also respond to questions and instructions the first time. Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to go over just different student populations. And this has been something that's been evolving over years and years. Before we get into that, I did want to go over where you should be in the class and where we're going, all that stuff. So if you jump into the class right here, if you remember at the front page, I always put the class recordings right here. So if you've missed a class, you can go back and easily catch up right there. If you look at the course plan, you'll see here we have live class. We have 2 assignments, which are the last 2 assignments of the class, lesson quiz 6, and then also the course reflection. Those are due a week from now. And then you do have about a little over about 2 weeks almost to kind of get caught up if you're behind. So make sure you get everything in. I do have to submit grades on the 17th. For those that are interested, we will be holding a skills test on the 16th. I'll give you more information. If you want a certificate saying that you know this material, you're good at it, we will be having that on the 16th. At the same time we usually have class. As I said before, I'll get you more information on that as we get closer. All right. Okay, as we go through here, you're definitely taking it. Good. I hope everybody shows up. Okay, so we have all our units. We are in unit 6, so you have the Nearpod link right here. If you need it, the course reflection, you're just going to write a quick reflection of what you've learned during the class, 100 words or more, and then a little quiz that it's going to be pretty easy. It's basically on the definitions that we're going to be going over today. It would be March 16th. Allie, and I can just go back to that so you can see that, March 16th. Because we'll be starting into teaching as a profession 2 pretty soon after that. Okay, so here's the quiz today. It's not very hard. We'll just go over that, but it's all on the material that we'll be learning in here in just a second. Okay, any other questions before I get going into this? Okay, all right, seeing none, we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to talk about cultural groups, and those are broken out into all different kind of areas, okay? If you think about us, we're all diverse in different ways. We have different preferences, different likes, different family structures, different places where we live, sometimes different native languages, different abilities or disabilities, different ethnicities, occupations, body size, everything, right? We're born in different, some of us like me, I'm born in a different generation than you guys. So we all have to be kind of aware of these different things that could affect us and the way we learn. And so that's a part of being like a teacher, knowing those different demographics and kind of looking at them. So what we're going to do first off, we're going to watch just a quick video that kind of talks a little bit about some biases we may have that we kind of need to not necessarily have. And that just kind of helps understand and be able to teach individually for each person. Okay. So I thought this would be a good one to kind of show what I mean by this.
As children, there is no limit to what we believe we can become. But as girls and boys, we are steered in different directions growing up. This happens because of what we call gender stereotypes, traditional ideas about what boys and girls can or should do. They may not always be obvious, but stereotypes are everywhere, and they start to follow us from our earliest days in the toy store and continue to influence us when choosing subjects at school. For instance, girls are expected to be good at arts and humanities, while boys are led towards maths and science. When we come across the same stereotypes again and again, they begin to feel natural and start to shape our preferences and career paths. More men go into better paid jobs in the science, technology, engineering and mathematics field, and women tend to choose teaching and social work professions. Acknowledging gender stereotypes and their consequences is the first step towards breaking the mold, so that we build our lives based on our own choices.
All right. So looking at that way, one of the discussions I had right before we came on is I was speaking with, I can't remember who it was, who likes to draw. Brooke, right? So Brooke likes to draw, right? And I was just saying how my son really likes to draw as well. I mean, he really loves arts and that kind of stuff. You know, stereotypes would maybe lead like, hey, you shouldn't be drawing, you should be working in these fields because that's more of where we do. But I think we need to be able to have diversity in all different fields. Like, for example, I'm probably one of the, there's only a couple, I can think of 3 or 4 male teachers in the high school at Utah Virtual Academy, right? And so the rest are women. So it's kind of interesting how we kind of lead to different professions. But, you know, I really love teaching. I like the different aspects of it, and helping kids learn. So we have biases of where people should go and stuff, but I think we need people in everywhere. Yeah, like for example, just because we're female doesn't mean that we have to have specific things we're expected to do. Yeah, definitely, right? I would definitely agree with that. I think, you know, for example, when they're talking about jobs, right? Many great women could be engineers or whatever, right? And there's a bunch of men that could be good nurses too, right? I think having those stereotypes kind of leads people away from what they want to do and just kind of groupthink is what it's called, right? And saying like, oh, this is the way things are and have to be, right? But we all have different preferences, and I just say, hey, lead to wherever your preferences are. Yeah, like there are women who even do stuff that you'd expect a guy to do yet, and this goes for males as well. Yep, I definitely agree. Now, there's different things. Not if we're just that one spoke about gender, right? But we got a whole bunch of things as well about different abilities, right? There's a huge thing in education where we talk about equality versus equity. And I thought this graphic right here really kind of showed it the best, right? We could say, hey, we're going to give everybody like equal things, right? So they give everybody a box to stand on right here so they can watch the game. Well, you know, this person over in the wheelchair can't get on the box, right? So that's an issue. This girl, like, she still has issues. She's probably she looks like she's on her tippy toes trying to see over the wall. And the one that's tall already is good, right? So we all come from different backgrounds and stuff like that. So for example, in this one, when we're talking about equity, is we basically do things to make things pause. So everybody's kind of on an equal status. You know, everybody can see over the wall, they can see it, and it's great. And we've kind of accommodated there. Okay. Somebody put one of the biggest culture shocks is being around people who are not abide by stereotypes, and then meeting people who think living by stereotypes is how it should be all the time. Yeah. And so, and that kind of goes with culture and stuff like that. But in education, you got to be familiar with all of these different areas, right? So despite, race, gender, ethnicity, language, family income, family background, or disabilities, you got to see what it all is and make it equitable for everybody to be able to, learn on the same playing field, right? Just like this graphic shows. Okay, so there's laws that have been put in place that talk about this, and here's one that you'll need to know for your quiz today. This is called the Individuals with Disability Education Act, or they always use the acronym IDEA. What this is a law made available for free and appropriate public education to eligible children with disabilities throughout the nation and ensure special education and related services to those children. So, for example, if you were to have some type of disability that affected your education performance, right? The public schools are legally required to make some type of program that will help you make things equitable, right? So we look back at this picture, equity, right? To make things there. So this is kind of one of the big ones. You may or may not have heard this before, but if you do have some type of disability, this leads right into our next one, which is an IEP, right? An IEP stands for Individualized Education Program. Usually people say plan, but it's actually in the legislation's program. So basically, this is a plan or program that ensures that the child who has the disability identified under IDEA is basically attending. They basically have services that they'll be able to provide, right? So if you have a deficit like in reading services will be provided. If you have a deficit in speech, they'll get you a speech and language pathologist. If you have a deficit in those different areas, related and specialized instruction will be given to you to help that equity bill to happen. Okay. So that's another group there. Another one that doesn't go along. It's a separate thing from an IEP, but it's called Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1974. So they call it a 504 plan, but basically a 504 forbids organizations or employers from excluding or denying disabled individuals an equal opportunity to receive program benefits and services, is define the right of the individual with the disability to participate in and have access to the program's benefits and services. So one thing, and we'll talk a little bit in a second, the difference between a 504 and IEP. But a 504 extends beyond the actual thing. It goes into employers in the workplace. So let's talk about the difference, okay? So a 504 plan is geared towards ensuring a student has equitable access to a learning environment. So what they usually do with a 504, you would get an IEP if it's affecting your educational performance, but if it's not, so let's say you're still understanding all the concepts, you're learning really well, but you just need I'm trying to think of something here. You just process a little bit slower and you need extended time. That's a good thing. So if you have extended time, that makes things equitable for you, and a 504 plan would be what would happen. You'd have that accommodation we'll talk about. Somebody said, I had one, but because I didn't go to school, preschool, or kindergarten first. Okay. Yep. And sometimes you do have those gaps, right? And then hopefully you get to a point where you can graduate out of these possibly, right? An IEP more focuses on like educational benefit, and often includes direct services such as like speech therapy or occupational therapy or stuff like that. Okay. So that's the difference between those two plans. And I said a 504 will extend beyond a public education setting, right, into employer and even on to like colleges and stuff. Okay, so here's another category of students is students learning English. They call them ELL. So an ELL is a student who uses another language in addition to or other than English. So you think of people that may be born and their primary language is something else. Learning in a different language is a lot harder, right? And so you have to almost like translate those things. So you may need to be able to use different types of methods to help these students out, okay? So that is another demographic. Another demographic you may not think of is like gifted and talented, okay? So gifted and talented is basically exhibits high performance capability in an intellectual, creative, and artistic area, possesses an unusual capacity for leadership or excels in a specific academic area. So you may have said like, oh yeah, somebody takes like college classes in high school. Okay, this could be somebody that's gifted and talented, right? Or honors classes, or something that challenges them a little bit more, and they want that challenge. Because we don't want to like hold people back. We want to challenge them to meet their potential. And so just getting programs for everybody's level, and ensuring they have that. Okay, so one of the things we talked about too is accommodations. So accommodations are things that are put in place to help people, like as we saw that picture, the kid on the wheelchair, and able to get him up so we can make things equitable. So some examples of accommodations are like extended time, okay? So giving more time on tests, on assignments, if maybe you process a little bit slower, reduce workload. Some people get really frustrated with things. Preferential seating. So some people get distracted when they're sitting by their friends or something like that. Guided notes. This is something that's really good. Like I always got like hand cramps because it was so hard to write things. If somebody has issues writing, be able to have guided notes to help them so they're not, they can actually learn and concentrate on what's being said rather than just concentrate on writing things down. Extended activities for like a gifted and talented, etc. Okay. So those would be like accommodations that would be used and strategies to help make things equitable. Okay, another thing that we need to talk about real quick is multiculturalism. And this is something we've kind of talked about a little bit at the very beginning, but it's the view that cultures, races, and ethnicities, particularly those of minority groups, deserve special acknowledgement of their differences within a dominant political culture. So we have so many different cultures that are coming in, and everybody here, I guess, for Utah Virtual Academy. I mean, we have different cultures that are coming in, different groups and views that we need to look through. You've probably heard of the phrase, walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. So being able to see from their perspective how things are, right? And if you're able to see that, you're more able to say, okay, how can this student learn? Because that's kind of the ultimate goal as a teacher, is figuring out how this person learns and helping them get that. So that's multiculturalism. The last one is diversity we'll talk about. So diversity doesn't only relate to race and ethnicity. It also includes these other following categories, such as different religion, economic status, sexual orientation, gender identity, and language background. So, oh, you think a teacher in Carbon County would watch this? Well, maybe send them the recording. But we all have different, diversity things that we need to just consider. And as I said, just looking at things from a different point of view doesn't mean that you have to believe in their stuff or anything like that, but at least just kind of considering where everybody else is coming from. So that is our lesson for today. Real quick, let me just kind of go over here. So we have our quiz today. We have two things, right? The lesson 6 quiz. We'll have that, and then the course reflection. And then if you've caught everything up, that'll be all your assignments. And then we do have, as I said before, that skills test that we'd like to take on the 16th. But if you look at the quiz real quick, it just basically, what is the Individuals for Disability Education Act? You can go back here, and I'll open this up if you guys want to use this. And you can skip back and look at some of these things. With it, what is IDEA? What's an IEP? A 504 plan? ELL students, gifted and talented, and then also talking about multiculturalism. So, okay, that is the end of our class here. I'll stick around if you guys have any questions, but I will stop the recording and then answer anything that you may have.